Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are all doing well, and today, my friends, we're back with a showdown between Bretonnia and the Empire. So the Sons of Sigmar marching upon the mighty Knights of the Lady. Should be quite a bit of fun. FEY Enchantress facing off against an Arch-Lector. Certainly a cool pick, and I've noticed that playing against Umais. He really likes to use these kind of alternative lords that are very cheap and cost-effective, aka Belegar. And the Arch-Lector, honestly, I think just with the Hammer of Sigmar, which he has got to be really, really cheap. I would imagine probably costs like sub 1,000 gold, which does allow him to get a much bigger army. So he's got mortars, he's got a cannon as well. So mortars are pretty much there to deal with peasant archer spam, and honestly just generally very good against Bretonian infantry. He does also have a great cannon to deal with cavalry, and aside from that, it's going to be a bunch of halberds, a single handgunner, and double Demogryph Knights in the trees, with an Amethyst Wizard basically to secure artillery superiority. So I really love this. Obviously, if you're going to go that heavy in mortars, the Bretonian artillery actually outtrades Sigmarite artillery, which is like one of the most annoying things ever. So like if Bretonnia has like a couple trebs and you have a couple like cannons or whatever, I find that the trebuchets actually do better. And even if they don't per se, they can still attack like Demogryph Knights and get a ton of kills, which is really, really scary because I do main Empire. Empire is my main faction. I don't play Bretonnia terribly often, but I have a couple matchups in which I feel comfortable with them in. And against Empire is one that I think Bretonnia is slightly favored, at least in my experience. I play against them all the time, and it's really, really tricky for sure. But yeah, anyways, we got FEY double Paladin. Very surprising, very exciting stuff indeed. But aside from that, we're going to add a little bit of spice to the build with the Blessed Field Trebuchet. So normally I would go with triple standard Trebuchet here, just to blast and try and win the artillery duel. But I think two Trebs with the Blessed in nature should be quite a bit of fun. And, you know, they have higher missile strength. I wanted to see how effective they could be against like Demogryph Knights and things like that. Triple Questing Knight, triple Peasant Archer, Battle Pilgrims in the front, Spears in the back, and that is it. So a very standard army. There's a multitude of strategies that Bretonian players will use, but generally it's kind of anchored around Questing Knights and Peasant Archers, and oftentimes Battle Pilgrim rushes can be very good against Empire because they'll go with State Troopers in this matchup, definitely not Great Swords, and Battle Pilgrims really have a super dominant matchup versus State Troopers. Now, right out of the gates here, Umais with a clever play. Just going to start the Spirit Leeching train here on the Blessed Field Trebuchet, which is very, very smart. So I'll do a little bit of fast forwarding here while we get our armies together because this is going to take some cat and mouse before the real engagements get going here. Umais does move over here, and he does have the force to his back, which I think is pretty good against the Bretonians, because in doing so, if I try and like flank, I'm having to move through the woods. It makes the Empire halberds and spears that much more effective at defending the battle line. So certainly pretty cool. Gotta watch out though. If I engage a little bit too close over here, I could get routed off the white line. So that is a tricky pickle indeed. Trebuchet shooting in, and now the FEY Enchantress and Paladins looking to try and get some freebies, but Umais does rally his mighty Demogryph Knights. I have to pay my respects to them for sure because they do have the Hammer of Sigmar, so things could get very, very spicy indeed. Amethyst Wizard looking to drop another Spirit Leech. Looks like it is going to be overcasted from downtown, and that should do, I think, at least 2 models worth of damage to that Trebuchet. I think 2 Spirit Leeches usually takes out at least a model. Yeah, it takes out 2 in total, so I have 1 Trebuchet left there. So just trying to see if he was paying attention here, dropping the Chalice of Potions on top of the handgunners, and he was. So he's able to move out of the way. But it does also force the relocation of the handgunners, which buys a little bit of time for my advancement. That's kind of a mistake I make in a lot of games, is where I'll use the Chalice too early to try and, you know, catch someone with their, a little bit too relaxed, basically. So Battle Pilgrim's moving in, and now the Bretonian onslaught is upon us. Battle Pilgrims should have a pretty dominant matchup for Swordsmen. Their stats are just objectively better, and they have better leadership. And now the FEY Enchantress and the 2 Paladins going to be jumping in, and we're just going to start bumping and grinding here. So Battle Pilgrims, yeah, they should do a pretty decent job with their glorious Italian Spartacus haircuts. Men-at-Arms moving in to fight against the other State Troopers, and thankfully the engagement did take place very, very close to his artillery. So my Peasant Archers, though one of them is broken from the double mortars already, the other 2 should be able to shoot in and take out these mortar teams, which is a really, really nice catch here early on. Arch-Lector moving into the front lines, you know, looking to fight. I probably could have attacked him with the two Paladins there, but I was a little bit apprehensive considering the Demis could countercharge me, and also the handgunners were putting some decent peppering fire. So right now my Questing Knights are kind of sitting idle, and the reason why I'm doing this, I was trying to see where he really wanted to commit his Demogryph Knights before I dive in myself. Men-at-Arms, or Battle Pilgrims with the favor of the Fae, really dominate the Swordsmen. Demis do charge back in, and now comes the countercharge. So the Questing Knights, one unit will be attacking the other flank, and the other ones do get the charge on the Demis, which is very cost-effective. Questing Knights, from a cost perspective, do trade very, very well against Demis. As a matter of fact, we pick off 2 models. And Demogryphs are a model unit, or a unit with a low model count, so every time you're able to really take one out, it's pretty cost effective. Now, slight overextension from the Questing Knights into the Spearmen. We are able to take out the Great Cannon as well, so the Peasant Archers, we've only lost 1, and we've accrued pretty good value. So at this point in the game, I ultimately felt like I was in very, very good shape. Here, the Questing Knight's going to be collapsing on this flank, so we did go up and around, pulled the Fey Enchantress away from the Paladins, which was a little bit risky, but we basically just wanted to grind here and collapse this entire flank, while the double Paladins and the Questing Knight blob do just kind of chase down the Demogryph Knights. But Yumai's does have a nice reserve of Halberds. Now, normally Halberds are very easily countered by Peasant Archers, and that's one of the reasons why I don't use them in my Empire builds. But in this case, now that my Peasant Archers are offline, so he kind of checked his boxes, right? It's like the rock, paper, scissors formula. He deals with the rock of the Peasant Archers, and then, suddenly the paper of the Halberds is going to be more effective. Certainly quite cool. So we do have a bit of a grind fight here. Paladin a little bit overextended, so I do get a little bit greedy here with this Paladin. He overchases on the Archlector and is going to be getting beaten down, but the Field Trebuchet is picking off Demogryph Knight models, and we did lose one, and you can see the crew, the Blessed crew, is coming up. Chalice of Potions tried to shut down the handgunners, but he did dodge it very effectively. Balance of Power is pretty damn even at this point. We do have a big aggressive engagement here, and I would say the Demogryph Knights are probably on the receiving end of that exchange, as the Fey Enchantress here does drop a regrowth. That Paladin should be able to stabilize. And yeah, they're down to 11 models, and also the favor of the Fae is getting some really, really good draining here. Trebuchet crews also shooting in. They don't do friendly fire, so that's cool. I'm quite eager to actually check the value on the one that was shooting the entire game, because after I played the match, I didn't check it. So I'm going to be checking that after with you guys. Fey Enchantress pulling back at this point. I was pretty even on the balance, but I felt like the grind wasn't going to go super good, considering my men-at-arms are pretty broken up. I guess I did have 35 Battle Pilgrims here, but with the amount of Halberds and Demis and Handgunners in support, I felt like this was a losing engagement. Granted, maybe it could have been okay with the Fey Enchantress just draining. It could have been a big multiplicative effect, but I do decide to pull out at this point. That's what she said, and move over here and go after the swordsman. So we're just bouncing around, looking for freebies, trying to take advantage of the fact that I have a fair amount of mobility left, but Yumai does a very good job getting his mortars back online. We did take this mortar out very early, but it's come back here, and it's still doing an excellent job of taking out my men-at-arms. And now we do pull for more or less a full retreat. I know that I have my Trebuchet online. I think it still has 2 models left. So I was kind of like, okay, let's get the Trebuchet online, pull back over the hill, kind of line of sight his handgunners, and see if the Trebs can get some good trading. So this is like the big reset here in the battle. And honestly, the Balance of Power has pretty much been dead even the entire time. Demogryph Knight models super beat up, 20 right here, which are, I guess, arguably in good shape, but the other Halberds are in very, very tattered shape, only 10 models there. So yeah, both of us reforming ranks, my Knights pulling back, my Paladins pulling back, going to be getting some healing. The main reason why I wanted to pull back also was to gather my spearmen. I knew I had more troops in reserve here, so I wanted to get those troops kind of gathered with my main army before I did another push here. So a little bit of fast forwarding as there's some cat and mouse here. You can see the Deathcaster continuing to drop Spirit Leeches, and the Trebuchet just kind of shooting into Demogryph Knights, Flagellants, pretty much whatever it can hit. Fey Enchantress and the Paladins looking to get in there and cause some work, but the handgunner fire does kind of force me back here in the mortars, doing some lethal damage. So finally I am able to reform ranks. I get all my troops together, and now it is time for the final push, though I am pulling behind on the bounce a little bit. The 2 Empire mortars seem to be doing a good job. Basically, I'm just trying to get the Demis into an engagement with the Paladins, though they will do okay against Paladins. In my experience of playing Empire against Bretonnia, usually Fey and 2 Paladins can dominate Demogryph Knights pretty handedly. Each of the Paladin attacks will, of course, be able to take out a model more or less, and I found it to be a very messy affair. So men-at-arms, I wouldn't call them fanatics, but the devotees of the lady, piling in to fight the devotees of Sigmar. Flagellants, of course, very squishy, but they should be able to win that fight. Spearmen moving in to fight Halberds, and now we do have our Fey Enchantress blob, which is certainly very, very good for us. Demogryph Knights getting picked apart. We have a couple of Questing Knights that have moved in as well to lend their armor piercing to the fight, and now they're going to be piling in to help out, and hopefully we can win this blob engagement. Though, there are Empire Spearmen. Spearmen don't have the best AP, so the Mists of the Lady really going to be super taxing on all these units here. But Halberds are moving in. Are they being drained? Yes, they are. Their HP is going down slowly but surely. Balance of Power has kind of come back towards the middle. It was definitely in the favor of the Empire there, but since we did win this engagement, kind of break back the Demis, wiping out 1 unit, it's going to be nice for us. So Fey Enchantress and the Paladins continue to fight hard in the pits here. Things are getting a little bit hog wild and desperate when the Field Trebuchet crews are being forced to come in here. Both Paladins going to be moving on over to the mortar team, so we'll see what we can accomplish here. And the mortars do have 3 models, Paladins moving in, and this is good. We can fight here. The Halberds will do some decent, consistent damage. Winds of Magic for me at this point in the game was a little bit low. My Questing Knights in the back have rallied, and they're going to be moving out to fight against the Amethyst Wizard, which is very good. We could potentially kill the caster here, although I think most of the Spirit Leeches are kind of off the table. Fey Enchantress and Paladin squad just trying to stay away from the Halberds, moving after the Demis. Demogryph Knights, as far as their model count goes, they are at 14, and obviously in this build, the Spirit Leech was you're very good at taking out my artillery, but on that same note, you don't have healing for your Demis, so it's a bit of a a double-edged sword. However, I think based on my build and me investing in quote-unquote expensive artillery, I think his Spirit Leech was quite effective and very strong. He did an excellent job with that. So now FEY Enchantress and the Paladins fighting in a pit. This is actually okay. FEY's getting a little bit beat up here, but we are getting a nice consistent drain on all these units, and over here we do actually kill his caster. So the Questing Knights were able to get the caster, and for the first time in a little while, we actually take a noticeable lead here. So my Questing Knight's going to be trying to move up, go after the handgunners. Although there are some other targets here, we could go after the swordsmen and try and rally our troops, go after the flagellants. I felt it was necessary to shut down the handgunners. Although handgunners really do struggle to shoot here, a beautiful Last Samurai. You can see my Questing Knights moving in. We got Industry facing off against Chivalry here. Quite a fun duel. But I knew I wouldn't make the Last Samurai attempt with the halberds. So what I do is I just run into the box here, try and break the leadership of the halberds. We do manage to break one unit. The mortar is actually doing a little bit of friendly fire. Now the two paladins bounce out to fight the Arch-Lector. So this should be a pretty big game-winning situation for me here. The Arch-Lector taking that damage. The two paladins do get the charge. Very, very nice stuff. But surprisingly quick. 78 speed. My paladins have 78. So I didn't know that the Arch-Lector was actually faster than me. He's able to get away, but now we're going to do our best to stick onto the handgunners here. Still a lot of Empire troops. I don't have that much left outside from my leadership, but my leadership core is very, very powerful, and the perpetual draining really doing huge work here. But the halberd grind also adding up. I'm healing caps on this paladin. The other paladin here is at about 2,000 HP, and the FEY Enchantress is also getting poked down by the halberd units, but we do have a couple units rallying as well. So we do have some Blessed Field Trebuchets, some men-at-arms in the forest there who are going to be doing the best fighting they can. Yeah, artillery for the Empire is about out of ammunition, so that's not really a factor anymore, but we are pretty damn far ahead in the balance. Looking like we are in a commanding position. One thing we do have to watch out for, of course, is the Arch-Lector just going Super Saiyan and potentially taking out a Paladin. But I do have relatively low mass. I kept trying to push out of this halberd blob, but my paladins were getting stuck. They were getting poked with the halberds, and that was a big problem for me because it did give Yumai's time to actually reform ranks on his handgunner. So very, very well played there. So we just kind of keep grinding in the pits, fighting against those units there, but we do get out, and now one paladin instantly gets gadded down by those handgunners, and the other paladin is going to be trying to fight the Arch-Lector. Paladin against Arch-Lector, it's a hard one. The Arch-Lector has pretty good armor at 95, but so too does the Paladin. I mean, in theory, the Paladin probably should win that, but there's halberd support. We pinned in the Arch-Lector there. We start to get the drain. The handgunners getting poked as well. The Paladin does jump over there, and the FEY Enchantress gets a mighty unicorn attack here into the Arch-Lector, but the Arch-Lector is going to wisely pull back. But there are a lot of Sigmarites on the battlefield. I think, as a matter of fact, there's another unit coming down here of swordsmen. Only 32, though. And FEY Enchantress can pretty much solo the infantry pretty well. So we are on top of the handgunners, getting some good drain. We do re-secure our position in terms of the balance of power advantage. FEY Enchantress here, continuing to drain down. This Paladin will be pulling back, looking for all the goodies. You can see going back and forth here. And here comes the Arch-Lector. He is furious atop his steed, and this was pretty rough. I probably should have turned and fought here because running, I assumed the Bretonnian horse would be faster, but no, the Arch-Lector actually gets the attack, and that could have potentially been the play that loses it for me, right? If I had turned and fought, hit the Arch-Lector once, he might have broken, might have gotten a better trade, but I tried to run and then re-engage, assuming I was faster. So that was a huge blunder that actually gets Yumai's back in the game. I felt like I was in a very good position if I had fought there, but now suddenly we have like a razor-thin game, which is crazy. So Paladin being chased off. FEY Enchantress here, going to be draining down the halberds. I do have my trebuchet crew. Check this out. The most heroic trebuchet crew, with the favor of the Fae, actually helps to break off the other halberds. They're coming in with their farming tools, and they got 50 melee attack. Chosen, eat your hearts out there. And we are chasing down the halberds, so now we got a pretty wild game. My Paladin did get broken. We're basically just chasing. My field trebuchet crew does go after the Arch-Lector, but their leadership's at -6. You are going to break, and now it's basically just RNG. Is the FEY Enchantress going to hit, or is the Arch-Lector going to hit? Arch-Lector gets the hit, FEY Enchantress misses, despite me having a higher melee attack here. His melee defense holds firm, and the FEY Enchantress missed her 2 attacks, and the Arch-Lector hit his 2. So we just lose it on the end there in the final duel. Well played to Yumai. It was a crazy good game. Really a roller coaster. Like, he was ahead in the beginning. You know, I came back. He got the game back. I got it back. Then he got it back. Crazy, crazy good match. Super fun. Yeah, FEY Enchantress is just so goddamn strong. Like, surrounded by halberds and draining. The field trebuchets, pretty good with the one that did live. So in retrospect, I would just cut the Blessed Field Trebuchets. I would get a third one, because then even if they Spirit Leech spam on you, it doesn't matter. They'll kill like one, and the other 2 Trebs will secure the ranged advantage for you and force the Empire to advance, which in my experience as an Empire player, you usually lose that. It's very, very tricky. But very well played, man. Yumai's scrapped so hard. He had a very cool, unorthodox build, and man, he is an awesome player and a really great dude as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We'll see you on the other side. Take care. For the lady, for Sigmar. It's a win on both sides. Who doesn't love the Empire and Bretonnia? Cheers, my friends. Take care, stay safe, and avoid Nurgle's Plague.